NFL Network draft guru Daniel Jeremiah believes the Eagles have told Jalen Carter, if you're there at 10, we're taking you. And a recent report has Philly seriously considering Bijan Robinson at 10. Plus, the Birds hosted another top prospect. Could Howie's plan be shifting in the first round? But first, let's run it. Hey guys, hope you had a great Tuesday. Josh Davis here, and if you don't know already, I cover the Birds. So make sure to like, subscribe, and turn the notifications on so you're up to date on all the latest Eagles news. ESPN's Todd McShay released his mock draft today, his most recent or the 4.0 version, but he's got Philadelphia, you see, taking Lucas Van Ness, the defensive end from Iowa. And here he says, Van Ness has the arm length and foot speed to dominate off the edge, and I love the versatility that comes with his game. He's arguably even more effective rushing the passer as a 3 technique. Philadelphia lost Javon Hargrave and re-signed Fletcher Cox to a 1-year deal, so I could see Van Ness and Jordan Davis wreaking havoc from the interior. GM Howie Roseman loves building up in the trenches, and Van Ness can make an immediate impact there after 14 sacks over 2 seasons at Iowa. I still think Texas running back Bijan Robinson would be interesting in this offense, even though that isn't a position Howie Roseman prioritizes early in the draft. He's a top 5 talent in the class and fits seamlessly in this run-heavy offense. But Kenneth Gainwell looked solid at the end of last season. Rashad Penny will be a big contributor if he stays healthy, and they could still add a veteran like Ezekiel Elliott. He had me until the Ezekiel Elliott part, because as we know, Nick Sirianni's already commented on what the thoughts would be of adding Ezekiel Elliott.
We feel really good about the room as it is right now.
We feel really good about the running back room, so we don't need Ezekiel Elliott. But you go back to who does Todd McShay have at 10, and it's Lucas Van Ness, and that's an interesting consideration, but I don't know that that's really the top pick that you want to go after. I think there's other names, and we've seen a lot of other names as potentials. So take a look at this, and this was late breaking news from Joe Castro of the Philly podcast. And by the way, the show will be dropping tomorrow morning, but our recording together had a great time, some really good insights, so be on the lookout for that. But you see the tweet. He says, I'm hearing the Eagles are seriously open to taking Bijan Robinson at 10. Other names I was told are hot were Lucas Van Ness, Paris Johnson Jr., Peter Skoronski, and Jalen Carter. If you haven't been following Joe, he called the BG news. BG returning to Philly before anybody else did. Now, he may not be a national media member, but he's been on top of a lot of other things. So if Joe is saying that they're seriously considering Bijan Robinson at 10, I think you have to take that at face value and say, yeah, maybe so. The Eagles are considering that, because also you got to remember as well, Bijan Robinson has been posting, or did post whenever he came to Philly. He was one of the top 30 visits. And so you see the Instagram post of whenever he showed up to Philly. It's Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, the link in the background. You're just putting 2 and 2 together. And then also remember, let's not forget that Bijan Robinson has the same agent as Jalen Hurts and Nicole Lynn, the picture there with Nicole Lynn. So I don't know, it'd be interesting to see how that one plays out. But let's go back to the mock draft here, because remember, there's 2 picks in the first round that we have. So who did Todd McShay have the Eagles taking at 30? He's got Will McDonald, the defensive end from Iowa State, at 30. And here's the write-up. The reason for taking him is let's double dip on pass rushers for the Eagles in round 1. They landed Van Ness at number 10. It was one of the team's biggest strengths last season with an NFL high 70 sacks, but Philly could use more depth there. Brandon Graham re-upped with the Eagles, but he's 34 years old. He meant 35. But Robert Quinn might be out the door after he was acquired last November. With long arms and plenty of explosion, McDonald hunts quarterbacks. He picked up 27 sacks and 35.5 tackles for loss over the past 3 seasons, and could be a day 1 contributor as a rotational pass rusher before developing into a starter off the edge to replace some of the aging players in this unit. You make an interesting point, a Will McDonald, possibly. I'm not sure that I'm really in favor of this mock draft, like we've already kind of discussed at what you would do at 10. I think that also shapes or changes how you might play number 30 or the 30th position, whether that means you already traded back with the 10th pick or you're trading up maybe if there's a guy that's actually up for grabs. So we'll see how that one plays out, but would love to know what you guys think. Do you like the mock draft here and who Todd's suggesting, or should it have been someone else? We mentioned top 30 visits, and so there's another top prospect that's met with the Eagles recently, as of yesterday actually. So you see the tweet from Jordan Schultz, and he says, Peter Skoronski had a top 30 visit with the Eagles yesterday. Source tells the score. A projected top 10 pick, Skoronski was a unanimous All-American for the Wildcats last season. It's an interesting pick. I think we've all started to see this name pop up on the boards. And yes, Howie loves the trenches, loves the offensive line, and Skoronski has some good tape. He's got a lot of versatility. You can play him at tackle. You can also play him at guard. But do we really want to reach? And I say reach, it may not be a reach because he's graded very high, but do we really want to grab an offensive line? I say no. And the person who makes the best argument for me is Brandon Deeg. And you look at his tweet here, Brandon says, the Eagles need O-line depth, but I don't think they need to use prime picks on it. Use the cheat code that is Jeff Stoutland to develop day 2 and 3 picks. I'm all in favor of that. Absolutely. Sign me up for the Jeff Stoutland cheat code because we remember what happened with Jordan Mailata, and I think that can happen similarly, maybe not the 7th round. Okay, let's not get ahead of ourselves, but yes, you can take day 2 and day 3 picks and turn them into starters in this league. With a guy like Jeff Stoutland as the offensive line coach, I think that's a phenomenal idea. So not really in favor of a Peter Skoronski, although it's always interesting to see who the visits actually come in, who the Eagles are taking a look at, because that usually is a telltale sign. Let's continue talking about the draft here. I know the big question is who are the Eagles going to draft, particularly in the first round, but even you want to more intensify it, it's really who are they going to take at 10, because that's the game changer, the playmaker, the guy who's going to change everything for this Eagles team. And so then the question becomes, well, what about Jalen Carter? If you didn't catch the show yesterday, we talked about the new body cam footage was released over the weekend. What ramifications would that be? But then all of a sudden, his agent, Drew Rosenhaus, came out and said, Jalen Carter is not visiting with teams outside of the top 10. And it's like, wait a minute, a guy who's got a little bit of some issues now or possibility of issues, some question marks, teams saying they've taken him off their draft board, is saying, nah, I'm good. I'm only going to meet with the top 10 teams. That was kind of alarming. But now, according to NFL Network insider Daniel Jeremiah, he says there's a reason for that.
I think normally when decisions like this get made, it's because you have a backstop. Like there's somebody that's giving you assurances that like this is where the slide ends. You're not getting past us, and you can trust that information. Now, I don't know who that is, but I'm guessing just by looking at all the factors involved that the Philadelphia Eagles, having Jordan Davis, a teammate of his, having Nakobe Dean, a teammate of his, being a team that's pass rush obsessed, they picked 10. So that when I heard that he wasn't meeting teams outside of 10, I'm like, he's got a backstop somewhere in the top 10. And, the Eagles would be my educated guess on that one.
That's interesting. Very interesting. And I can get behind that. Obviously, just an educated guess. So it's not anything official, but like we've already talked about and Daniel Jeremiah has mentioned, the Eagles have a lot of reasons to consider Jalen Carter. So if they just go out and say, hey, Drew Rosenhaus, by the way, if Jalen reaches us at 10, we are for sure taking him. There's no need to meet with other teams out there. Maybe that makes sense, at least more so. But it still kind of just perplexes me, the idea that you're not going to go and meet with any other teams outside the top 10. It feels risky, but obviously they have some sort of guarantee there, and Drew Rosenhaus is not concerned one bit. So who will the Eagles take? Let me know. Is it Bijan Robinson or Jalen Carter? It seems like that's the top two. I've been on so many other content creators' channels, on polls that are posted now. It's like that's the big polarizing topic. But who will it be? Will it be Bijan Robinson? Will it be Jalen Carter? Or will it be a Peter Skoronski? Someone else. Name someone else. Moving on, I found this really cool article because, again, everything's centered around the draft this time of year. Obviously, we're very close. We're about 3 weeks away, which is crazy to say that. But I wanted to take a look at what are the success rates for certain positions because, you can make the argument, hey, running back, it doesn't make sense to take because there's players that just don't last very long. That's a position that's not a lot of value. Linebacker also, Howie does not value that position. Take the trenches because that's where everything lives and breathes and dies with the Eagles. Or, just what's the success rate? And so there was this great article from the Philly Cover Corner, and they took this chart all the way back to 2000. But you look at the graphic here, and this is round one miss rates by position. And so you're seeing it there. Cornerback is the number one miss rate. Since 2000, it's almost 65% that cornerbacks are a miss in the first round. So for the arguments being made of, hey, there's a Christian Gonzalez, Devin Witherspoon, Joey Porter, there's lots of options, but this data here, and I know it's just data, you can always find loopholes, or there's other instances where say, you can always find an outlier, but it's just interesting you take a look because running back has actually been one of the fewest miss rates, but I can see it too on the flip side, and I kind of went through this article more of the reason for that is a lot of teams aren't going to take a running back in the first round unless they know he is a generational type talent and almost for sure going to come in and have a great career. But again, you take a look at that, there's a lot of areas of need for the Eagles, or at least some small gaps or holes that Howie could fill. So who's he going to go with there? I mean, the more that I look at it, I'm saying, your surefire bets are kind of offensive line, I could see where Howie maybe does want to go with that route. So a Peter Skoronski, as much as I would probably not be in favor of that, it wouldn't surprise me if at 10 they take a guy like a Peter Skoronski. The other topic to bring up is the one contract that all Philadelphia Eagles fans are waiting to get done. And you probably know what I'm talking about here, but Jalen Hurts, his contract is not done yet, but we know that it's pending. However, according to a report by Bleacher Report, you see an NFL executive predicts Jalen Hurts to sign Patrick Mahomes type contract to help Eagles. And in it, there's a quote here that says, "I think Hurts will do a Mahomes type deal with a good structure for the team," the executive said, per Mike Sando of The Athletic. "He seems to get it." Now, that's not a lot, but still, if it's an NFL executive, it's not some no-name, but an NFL executive thinking that this might transpire, then it begs the question is, what are we talking about? You guys remember correctly that Patrick Mahomes got a 10-year, almost $500 million contract. Now, there's a lot of flexibility in that, and so that kind of frees up the Chiefs to do a lot of different things in free agency because Patrick Mahomes is only paid about $63 million for his first 3 years of the contract, but a lot of times when you back end or backload that contract, then you pay for it, obviously, at a later date. So would it make sense if Jalen gives you a little bit of a discount, but to lock him in for 10 seasons? Or do you say, this is a guy that, he plays with a little bit of a reckless style. He's smarter than some quarterbacks, but there's always the chance for injury with how he plays. Do you want to lock him up for 10 years? Or do you say, nah, let's go with maybe something like a 5 to 6 years? I would personally probably be in favor of a 5 to 6 year deal. But again, if you can get it for the right numbers, I wouldn't be totally opposed to a 10-year contract. Want to know what you guys think, though? Would that be a good idea? A 10-year lifetime contract almost? Do something like a Patrick Mahomes deal. What do you think? Reminder again, live show tomorrow with Thomas Mott of The Thomas Mott Show, the Wednesday link, 7 o'clock Eastern. So be sure to check that out. Also have the episode with Joe Castro, Philly, the podcast, dropping tomorrow on Joe's channel. So be sure to check that out. Wanted to give him a shout out as well because you guys may not be aware, but Joe Castro, he's been doing some awesome work and he's going to the NFL draft. He covered the combine, had some really great content, some awesome interviews that he had with other players, but he will be at the draft. And so I've included the GoFundMe link in the description, but if it's $1, if it's $5, $20, $100, whatever you want to contribute, go check out Joe, subscribe to his channel, give to the GoFundMe because I'm telling you, the content that he's going to have and sharing the extra insights about the birds and covering the birds is going to be fantastic. So make sure to do that. But appreciate you guys joining as always. Until next time, I'm Josh Davis, and this has been the Philly Special.